G'day, y'all. Welcome back. I hope it hasn't been very long since you've heard from me, but I want to let you know that this podcast in particular, took me weeks and weeks and weeks to record. This season in particular has been kind of an extraordinary journey. I was going to say like an extraordinary challenge, but it isn't a challenge. One of the most incredible things about the Sustainable Dreams theory, about how I help people, the method that I use is that it's actually easier than staying the same. So while it is sometimes difficult, and you can look at it sometimes and see how challenging it really is, it's actually easier than staying the same. So for me, the word challenge just didn't really fit what I have been going through to make this podcast for you. And I think you've heard me say before that, this was a really hard episode to create because I've been going through this incredible growth journey recording this season. And every step was important, and some of the steps have been more in your face than others. But this one definitely took the cake. So it has been 6 weeks since I last recorded. This was completely unintentional. I had the recording on the books, ready to roll, except I just couldn't write a script. Like, my hair is probably 2 inches longer than the last time I recorded. And what has been preventing me, I'm going to be talking about, because it's definitely pertinent, and I think that a lot of people can relate, absolutely. But first, I think I want to just go over what BodiSet is. Basically, what I had written down for my script for weeks without making much progress beyond this is that BodiSet is essentially, to use modern terms, it's the manifestation of your mind, heart, and spirit. It's your lived reality. It's not just your body, your physical body, but it's your environment. It's your relationships, as they show up in the physical realm. So, I guess I thought, well, what else is there to talk about? Like the real kind of meat and potatoes of BodiSet is really in the mind, heart, and spirit, because once you get into the BodiSet realm, it's just kind of the comeuppance from it. It's just what happens because of what's behind the scenes. And then for things that get in your way, if you have listened to the Mindset, HeartSet, SoulSet episodes, that I talk about IQs. So there's a specific IQ that is associated with each realm, what I call district. So for the mindset, we talk about reality IQ, even though reality IQ is kind of everything together. The mindset would just be, your typical IQ. But it's more helpful just to talk about reality IQ on the mindset level, because your mind does control the other levels. It's the control room, if you remember from the mindset episode. But yeah, so in mindset we talk about reality IQ. In HeartSet we talk about emotional IQ. In SoulSet we talk about intuitive IQ. And then in BodiSet we talk about somatic IQ. So what I had down, if you remember too, there's dents and divots, like damage that can be done to your different into the different sets, to your different IQs. And then there's deficits, where you're living without the memory of, or without contact to like your base reality, the base reality IQ, without contact to how you saw things before the damage happened or how you felt things before the damage happened. And then there's deficiencies where you're far gone, which nobody listening to this podcast is. So just put that out of your mind if you're an anxious worrier like yours truly. Nobody with a deficiency is listening to this podcast. You could be in deficit. Definitely, you'll absolutely have dents and divots. Absolutely. But what I had down for the somatic IQ, dents and divots or deficits or deficiency, was trauma stored in the body. And while that is definitely a thing, and we go through, releasing that in a lot of my programs, especially in my health and wellness programs, because it's very physical focused, that wasn't everything. It's totally linked. What I found out about somatic IQ deficits, somatic IQ dents, divots, damage, deficiencies, it's totally linked to trauma stored in the body, but it's not just that. And the reason I just could not move forward with this episode is because I was, of course, ding, 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 struggling with exactly what I needed to teach here. So I had to take the time out of my life, out of everything, out of working on any of this to figure it out. And that's fine if you're in the independent sphere of personal growth, you're into independent empowerment. And again, if this isn't your first episode with me, with us, definitely if you have gone through the entire first season, which I highly recommend you do go through it in order. They'll all make sense on their own. They should, but they definitely make a lot more sense if you're listening to them in order, because this is a path. A linear path. You will remember that I talk about independent empowerment versus interdependent empowerment, or alignment, whatever you want to call it. So in independent empowerment, taking lots of time off, that's totally fine. And when you're in independent empowerment, even if you need to, take time off from your job or whatnot, that's totally fine. You can just find another job or whatever. The stages of life that align with independent empowerment are usually flexible like that. And I've done that, I've done that. I worked as little as possible, or I would work a lot and then save a lot of money and then go and study and do personal growth work, without having to work, without having to pressure myself, taking lots of sabbaticals, etc., to do this personal growth work. And that's wonderful. But when you're in the interdependent stage of empowerment, taking those big breaks, that's not a possibility. I can't just stop my relationship, not even with my friends. When I was in an independent stage of empowerment and personal growth, if I disappeared for months, my friends were also growing and developing, etc. And they would be like, yo, girl, go do your thing. Like, don't worry about us. Like, what the hell? You have to, focus on you and focus on what you're doing and focus on your goals. And, we'll be here when you get back. My friends now, a lot of my friends are new mothers, like they're not down for me disappearing for 6 weeks. Like, their kids are attached to my kids. They're attached to my presence. Our kids need routines. So even my friends are not, I'm not okay with my friends piecing out for months. Just because they needed some time. It's you need people who are dependable in your life when you're in the interdependent stage. That is not even to mention that, I can't just take a break from my husband. I'm going to take a break from my marriage. People do that, but that kind of says more about, some challenges than it does about benefits. And certainly not my baby. Or, as my baby grows. My baby is not technically a baby anymore. I'm kind of sad about it. He's a toddler now. That's how long it's been since we talked. But he's a toddler now. But even as he grows, I can't just take a break from him. Like, sorry, mama needs to take some time. That's not a thing. So this break that I took is totally not conducive to what I'm doing here. And I want to let you know right now, I'm smiling. If you're not watching on YouTube, I'm smiling. Because if you're listening to this right now, I made it. So if you're listening to this right now, I made it to the point where my BodiSet is so aligned into my interdependent, purpose, my interdependent existence, my highest interdependent existence. If you're listening to this right now, I made it. And I don't need to take breaks. And I'm going to be here for you. And that makes me so effing happy. Way more happy than being able to F off to a festival or F off and backpack and do things completely on my own, whatever. Like we always seem to, in this culture, glorify this independent empowerment that I could go and do whatever I want. People talk about having children like it's or the analogy for marriage is the old ball and chain, right? Like come on. It is so just wild to me once I got into a committed relationship, once I became a parent, how absolutely exciting and freeing it was. It just feels like a complete level up. I would not trade this to go to whatever festival or, do whatever it is that I want. I love this. I love it. So if you're in the independent stage and you're afraid of the interdependent stage, don't be, afraid of people depending on you and, you having to rise to the occasion, don't be, because pressure makes diamonds, right? You just strolling along the stream, you can become a very beautiful, fine, sanded pebble that's, really rounded and nice and beautiful, but you're not going to become a diamond. So yes, it took me weeks to prepare this. I had all kinds of mental, emotional, spiritual blocks. I got anxiety, I got low energy, and the physical blocks started to open my eyes. I was just reading my notes from weeks ago. I almost didn't even know what they meant anymore because I was talking about situations, these physical blocks that opened my eyes and I couldn't even remember them because it seems like a lifetime ago now. But all in all of these things, I don't even remember exactly these things. So I'm sorry if I'm not explaining them perfectly because it's been weeks. But all in all, the universe was telling me to take control of my BodiSet. Well, that was one of the things the universe was telling me. But there was actually something else. And I'm going to talk about that. I'm sorry for the teasers. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit because it's really, really, really important. But again, just touching base again a little bit with what BodiSet actually is. So we talked, I hope, a little tiny bit. I think I've actually only mentioned it. I haven't been able to really dive into these topics as much as I wanted to, which is why I created a course to go along with this season. But I think I know I have mentioned that the way that I see the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious layers of mind is a little bit different than traditional psychological ways of seeing these three realms. I see the subconscious as being something different from the unconscious, which is like two different realms of psychology. Some people think the sub and unconscious are one thing, and others refer to them as different things. I refer to them as different things, but what I think the subconscious is actually an intermediary between the conscious and the unconscious. So it's not really its own thing, but it is its own thing because it's operating like sending messages from the unconscious, which is the biggest part. It's our instincts, it's all of our programming from childhood, from our communities, etc. The unconscious can communicate what it knows via the subconscious to our conscious through things like feelings and intuitions. So the body is actually the unconscious. The body, our BodiSet, is actually the unconscious made visible. It's the unconscious made physical. It's instinct, which comes from, either intergenerational knowing from like your past family history, or just human nature knowing, human instinct. But it's also the result, as I was saying, of programming from early childhood up to about the age of 7 or 8. But it's also the result of your mental, emotional, and energetic state. So what I mean by that is that your body, your genes, your gene expression, your environment, what happens is your BodiSet. So something like energy, SoulSet, right? Your energy and your creative force and your SoulSet, when it turns into something like money or a child, it becomes BodiSet. So your mindset, when your thoughts actually become action, that's when they become BodiSet. So your emotional responses, when your emotional state, your HeartSet creates a nervous system response, that's BodiSet. When, the electrical activity in your brains, or your nervous system, etc., becomes hormones, becomes that hormonal or physical response, that is BodiSet. So I was saying when we're talking about BodiSet, we're going to be talking in this episode about everything that everybody wants, because your body, as well as your bank balance, is the sum of all your other parts: mind, heart, and spirit. But it also has a lot to do with your familial history and your childhood. So BodiSet was talking about the sets: mindset, HeartSet, SoulSet, as being kind of filters, right? Or, in SoulSet, it's how the energy is directed. Well, BodiSet is kind of the picture that's painted through the filters of mindset and the directed raw materials of your HeartSet and your SoulSet. So that saying, the proof is in the pudding? Well, the origins of that are kind of obscure, but it's likely comes from around the 14th century, where medieval puddings were actually more like sausages, like blood pudding in the UK. If you've ever had breakfast in the UK, you might be familiar with that, or you're from the UK. There is another saying. There's more sayings that come from this this kind of mystery of what's in sausages. I remember my professor saying something, one of my new professors at my university saying something about like find out what's in the sausage kind of thing by understanding how an institution really runs and having experience there. So there's a lot of sayings that come from this, but It has to do with uncovering truth that isn't obvious, that isn't in your face. So BodiSet is like that. When we're looking at the pudding, energy is like the meat in the sausage, okay? So energy is like the meat and the fat, and SoulSet is like the quality and the quantity of this, basic kind of bulk, the meat and the fat that goes into the sausage. Your emotions are like the seasonings, some people might be spicy, they got some cayenne pepper in there. Some people are more herby, they got some thyme and some sage, and others are more like onion and garlic, and we all have salt, I hope, because what's a sausage without salt? But your HeartSet is like the ratios. So your emotions are individual, so is your energy, the meat, but the HeartSet will depend on the ratio. So you don't want too much salt. You don't want too much sage. You don't want too much of anything. You also don't want too little, right? You don't want no seasonings in the sausage. That is lame. Thoughts are like the tools you're using. So the grinder and the casings, and mindset are the settings. So what grind or how the sausage actually gets shaped, which is a huge deal, and how you actually put the sausage together. So the proof of what's going on inside your mindset, HeartSet, SoulSet is the pudding, and the pudding is your life. It doesn't really matter what kind of challenges you're up against or what kind of privilege you've been born into. You have a lot of power in your life to make things a lot better or a lot not better at all. And this is how it's done. I have had some emails sometimes about genetic disorders or physical kind of dysfunction, and how, I don't know. Nobody's ever called me out for like victim blaming or something, but that's how I would see it. I'm not trying to victim blame or say that, we create our realities 100% consciously, we're all knowingly and all powerfully creating everything that happens in our lives. So there's no such thing as victimhood or anything. That's not what I'm saying at all. Okay. And I totally, no. I don't know if I totally understand my privilege, but I understand at least that I have privilege. I've also overcome hardship. We are absolutely capable of making our lives a lot better or a lot worse. So when I say that this is what everybody wants, it's the body, the bank balance, the relationships, the life, the house, the car, and I'm not even talking about like having a fancy house or having, a Lambo. I'm talking about having a clean house. I'm talking about having a comfy house. I'm talking about having a homey house that meets your needs. Whatever they are, whether that's, a ballin' ass, McMansion in LA, or, a cottage in the backwoods of Canada or New Zealand. Whatever floats your boat. Or having a car that makes you feel good to drive, that feels good inside, that is reliable, or, fancy because that makes you feel good. Whatever aligns with what you would identify as the good life, this is what it is. It's all BodiSet. And if you remember, we're recapping a little bit. I was talking about how the mental is controllable. So your mental is controllable, whereas your emotional and spiritual is essentially not controllable at all. BodiSet is similar. So you can act or you can refrain. You can do or you can do not. You can apply strategy and discipline, which is your mindset and your BodiSet working together. And you can see favorable results. With the emotional and the spiritual, it's not really a question of whether you should control your emotions or control your energy. You can't. You cannot. So, I mean, we can ask ourselves, should we control where the sun shines? I mean, maybe we should, but we can't. You cannot control these things. And while you can control BodiSet, working strictly on discipline is not going to change the meat and is not going to change the seasoning in the sausage. So you can work really, really hard to try and change the sausage, change the pudding, but you're not going to change the main constituents of it. So you really have to watch the pudding and with my methods, with how I teach, you can really watch the pudding, watch what's happening, and then address the issues that you see. And in that way, you can really change the outcome. So, the challenge. Okay. The challenge, the somatic IQ. The somatic IQ, dents, divots, and deficits. Somatic IQ deficit is dun dun dun, denial. When we are in denial about the proof that we see in the pudding. When we don't honestly take a look at what's happening in our lives. When we engage in wishful thinking instead of, honest inspection. When we engage in judgment and comparison instead of self-reflection, when we choose egotism over finding comfort and confidence in ourselves, we are living in our ego tool, our ET. And I believe I have only mentioned the ego tool before, and I did really want to dive into it, but like I said, there's just too many moving parts to dive into them in a podcast episode, each of these. So hopefully and definitely I will talk more about these tools, etc., and the ego tool specifically in future seasons. But definitely in the courses too, I dive in a lot more in depth. Now, somatic IQ deficiency, when we lose touch completely. And the only reason I explain this to you is so that you can identify where other people are at in your life. If you're butting your head against a wall of another person, you can start to identify what is actually happening for them, so you can understand and you can decide how you're going to behave in accordance with that, because like I said, nobody listening to this is actually in a deficiency. But a somatic IQ deficiency is actually living in total denial, out of touch with the body and reality. And the BodiSet, all of the sets align with chakras, not perfectly, but they kind of do. They all kind of bleed into one another, sort of the chakras. But anyways, the BodiSet is aligned with the root chakra, which is not just your body, but it's your place in the tribe. So it's it's kind of the space that you fill in your community. If you're living in a somatic IQ deficiency, you can't actually face that reality, like what your place in the tribe actually is. And change is extraordinarily hard. And again, I've talked about how I think that the reality IQ deficiencies are really what make up mental illness. And for sure, being trapped in the ego tool is absolutely, I've found every symptom that is associated of being trapped in the ego tool, not being able to connect with, you know, your actual self anymore. Every single symptom of that is aligned with mental illness. Refusing to face facts and avoiding mirrors. So real or figurative, but avoiding reflecting, avoiding and refusing to see consequences and face, you know, the pudding and accept the truth that is a somatic IQ deficiency. I'm gonna talk about it, but I just gotta get through the somatic IQ states right now, okay? Okay. I'm gonna talk about what was holding me back, but here we go. Somatic IQ 0, so base reality for somatic IQ, is feeling your body. It's that psychological advice that's gone viral on TikTok. Just like, feel your body. Like, I've seen so many like TikToks and influencers talking about how they're going to therapy and how it was like this massive breakthrough for their therapist to like just feel like to walk them through feeling their body. And I know with my husband as well, he's gone to therapy, and that was like actually a big part of therapy, was just to like feel the emotions in his body. It's weird to see it's like revolutionary, because it is. And for a society that we focus a lot on the body, but for some reason, I guess just emotions in the body, we didn't really connect the two. So this is like revolutionary for some people, because healing happens really naturally. All you have to do is create space for it. So even just like bringing your awareness to your emotions and how they feel in your body creates space for that healing to happen. So that can be absolutely revolutionary in somebody's life. But that is a base somatic IQ. Base somatic IQ is also the ability to reflect on things. So on your body, on your finances, on your relationships with agency. So we were talking about, if you going way back to the unstuck episode, that idea of leaving, right? Whether it's, again, figurative, metaphorical, or literal. That agency, taking that radical self-responsibility. That is somatic IQ, that's base somatic IQ. So SIQ 0, being able to look at things objectively and be like, what is happening here? Is this good or is this bad? And then being able to learn from others' successes and failures. So like, hey, my finances are in quite a state. Well, I can take this course, or I can go and see an advisor, or I can, read up on how to create a budget and how to make investments and what to do, what other people have done, what other people have learned, what other people can show me through their successes and their failures. That is a base somatic IQ. Sorry, I'm just like gearing up to telling you what has been like bothering me and why I couldn't make this episode. But one more layer. High somatic IQ. High somatic IQ is self-trust beyond the experiences of others. Okay, I want you to listen really, really well to this. It is believing in yourself beyond the norm, above the norm. So beyond what you've seen, beyond what you have experienced before, beyond what the people around you understand as being, normal or regular. Being able to walk forward into your individual purpose and effortlessly, this is a big part of it, effortlessly create the life that you dream of and keep it. You know, we're talking about sustainable dreams here. So high somatic IQ is kind of walking to the beat of your own drum. And here is the crazy part is that, you know, somatic IQ deficits, you know, when you're living in denial, you can mistake that denial for a high somatic IQ. You can think, oh, well, you might be able to do this, but I know I can't. Or, oh, look at that person. Well, I could do that. Oh my God. I mean, how many people have you heard say that they could, you know, be just like Justin Bieber if they had the right, you know, money and producers and whatever? The reality is, if you've ever watched, you know, Bieber, he can play like, I don't even know how many instruments. He's been studying music since he was like a tot. They have videos of him being like a toddler and just like jamming out on drums and stuff. The kid is so talented, so skilled, so many things. He is you know, and whatever else aside, whatever else he does aside, like that's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about his musical, not just raw talent, but the amount of work that he has put in. It is absolutely bananas for somebody to say like, oh, well, they could do it too if they just had the money and the producers. That's denial. But someone else who's a musician looking at Bieber and saying, I could be better than that, and everybody around them not believing that they could be better than that. But that person being aligned with their purpose to be better than that, that could be a high somatic IQ. That could be a high reality IQ. That person acting from a place of pure inspiration, knowing for themselves that they are capable of so much more than anybody around them can even fathom. They could be absolutely right. And, you know, we all have something like that in us that probably doesn't seem normal, doesn't seem regular, that we could, if we got in touch with it, we could believe, you know, against all odds from a place of knowing. But yeah, it can be mistaken for denial. And what was holding me back was not knowing whether I was in denial or not, and not even being able to engage with the possibility truly that I was in denial, and committing 100%, not just thinking it, not just feeling it, not just aligning my energy with it, but really walking the path of commitment to the goal that I see, the happy, healthy family, the monetary, the level of monetary success that I know is my birthright, the life, the day-to-day way that I go about things, the friends. And starting with, you know, my closest relationship to my husband. It took me a lot of time and a lot of conflict, a lot of uphill running to figure out and to really come to grips with how I needed things to physically move forward if I wasn't in denial. because there's a possibility that everything that I've gone through in my interdependent stage, everything I've gone through with my husband, the reason that I've stayed is because I knew. Because I knew that it didn't matter against all odds. It didn't matter what was actually happening right now in this moment, that this was the ideal relationship for me, that this was the man that I was going to grow old with, grow an empire with, grow a family with, the healthy, happy family that I wanted, grow healthy with, grow into the best version of me with. Even if that meant that it looked like it was against all odds, there is every possibility that I was absolutely right, and that nobody else would have ever been able to even tell that, or tell me that. And then if I'm not willing to reflect, to inspect, to accept at the end of reflection and inspection that I could be in denial too, then it's not really real, is it? So that is what I have been going through, is sorting out the difference between my greatest inspiration, my purest knowing, and denial, and walking the path of that pure inspiration, bringing it to my environment, bringing it down into my body, being it, taking that radical responsibility, taking that statement that I am done, that I am leaving this situation, and going with it. And I tell you that there were times that I thought that my leaving was not metaphorical, that maybe it had to be physical. But thankfully, as far as today goes, as far as right now goes, the leaving is physical. There is lots of things that are changing in my life for the better, but my husband is not one of those things. So here's the rub. At the end of all of this, what really needs to happen for people especially when you are in the interdependent stage, is that you need people around you that support you. You need people around you that understand a high somatic IQ. You need people around you that ask you to inspect, to reflect, that ask you, hey, do you know something here? Do you know something deep down in the depths of you that you need to follow this, even though it doesn't make sense to anybody else? You need people around you who are doing that for themselves. You need to have people support your individual highest growth. And that has been a major thing that I have been missing. So I have decided to reopen the Sustainable Dreams Inc. membership. The Sustainable Dreams Inc. membership focuses on BodiSet in the realm more of finances, of, career success, of relationship success, of having a happy, healthy home, living in abundant reality. And I opened it years ago. Little did I know I was not quite done at all. Actually, not quite. I was not done at all. My interdependent growth. And I couldn't keep up with it. But people loved it. People absolutely loved it. So the Sustainable Dreams Inc. membership, I opened for a year and a half. I had to close it because I assumed that people would like cancel eventually, and nobody ever did. Well, I mean, some people did, but the shortest membership that I ever had was just short of a year. I think she was a year. And she didn't even cancel. Her credit card just expired and she never renewed it. I didn't ask her to either. But that was my shortest member. Everybody in the membership just stayed in it because it's so good. But I couldn't keep up. It became like this. My full-time job was creating tools and resources for this membership that I had started. I have a wellness brand, and I found that people, once they got to their body goals, they wanted to do other things. They wanted the other types of success that I had seen, financial, relational, etc. So I made this other membership, this other brand for these people. And yeah, it was like really, really popular. It was, from the go, it was probably more popular than even my wellness brand. My wellness brand is like years old though, so it's not a fair comparison. But from the get-go, it was probably more popular than my wellness brand was when I first started. But so people actually really, really loved this. But I make tools, so I don't think I have ever actually talked about this at all. But I don't just teach. I don't just do like video courseware. I actually, the kind of like the meat and potatoes to my my method is actually tools. So I make like unique tools, blending spiritual and scientific practices. So they're evidence-based tools and therapies that are totally unique to my method, totally unique to me. I blended a bunch of things together so that you get these really hard-hitting ways, tools and therapies to grow forward, to heal, grow, strengthen the personal powers towards creating your ideal life. So for anybody that's ever been wondering like, okay, great, but how? That's really where I excel, because I have like things that you can do, and they don't cause any strife. They're actually really, really relaxing. I remember once the site went down, one of my sites went down, and like I had people like that couldn't go to sleep without their therapy and stuff. And I was like, wow, people like really depend on these things. Like they're very, very, most of them are very, very relaxing. Some of them are really in your face, but sometimes that's what we need and what we're actually craving. So the membership was a bunch of tools, but the tools take a bunch of time for me to create. Like these are like full on tools, and it's a whole like host of them. Like you have this like smorgasbord of tools. So that became like my full-time job, just making these tools just for SD Inc., just for the Sustainable Dreams Inc. And so I had to stop the membership because I thought that people would eventually cancel, and then I just have like, all these therapies and tools for somebody, people to start at the first month or whatever, but nobody ever freaking canceled. So here I was like a year and a half in, and I'm just like trying to keep up with everybody. But now I'm actually excelling at the interdependent level in my life, at the interdependent stage. So I feel like I can actually start a community, and I have a year and a half worth of tools already set up. So we've got a running start here. And I'm really, really excited because I really felt like I didn't have anybody around me to support me in the ways that I really, really needed. And I felt like it took so much longer because I didn't. And, we know from data that actually the income, your income is the average sum of your 5 closest friends. So it's really, really important that you are surrounded by people, not just that, make money or whatever. Like, that's not even, money's just a representation of things. It's not really the thing. You want people around who have healthy relationships. You want people around who are goal oriented. If you're goal oriented, you need people around who are chasing those goals too. Because, if your income is the sum of your five closest friends, then like everything else probably is too. Like your relationship is probably your relationship stage is probably the sum of your 5 closest friends as well. And in the independent stage of life, you can just take this time. If something happens, you have some setbacks, etc. But like the interdependent, you can't just take time. You need community. You need people around you to support you. You need friends. You need friends that see the best version of you. And that is what I want to create from this membership, from, the SD Inc. Community. Because the reason that people's income is the average between their 5 closest friends is because your environment is part of your BodiSet. So like your environment, what you're around, it becomes you. So I think that I have taken enough time. I was going to talk about how to tell a high somatic IQ from a deficit, but I think that I will save that for the membership. Maybe I will also talk about that in the course that is accompanying this season. However, there is a really, really, really important part to everything that I have been talking about and to making these goals effortless and easy. And I'm going to talk about it in our next episode. It is the real juicy nugget of how. If you've just been wondering how do I do it? You actually don't need to know anything that I have ever spoken about aside from this one thing, unless you do. But if you can do this without knowing anything that I have talked about this whole season, then you don't need any of it, because this is all you really need to do is get into a state of root love. So I can't wait to talk about that in episode number 10 and cap off this wonderful season of my life, wonderful season of this podcast, where I have walked you through my journey from getting unstuck to sitting in a state of enlightened, self-actualization. So coming up next episode, we're going to be talking about exactly that, making all your dreams come true. So thanks so much for walking with me. I am honored to have you on this journey, and I'll see you next time. G'day, y'all.